Business Source is proudly sponsored by JCH Communications. When it comes to marketing, we mean business. From websites to videos, we can guarantee you a return on your investment. Take a look now on our website at our video, www.jchcom.com. Hi, and welcome to Business Source, brought to you by Connecting Business. And thanks to our great sponsors over at JCH Communications, as always, for all your digital marketing needs. Definitely give them a shout. And now onto the show that gives you authentic conversations to help your business. There's no smoke and mirrors, just real people sharing their experiences. I'm your host, Lee Nightingale, and today I'm joined by yet another fantastic entrepreneur I'm really excited to chat with, Alexander Lowe. Alex is head of enterprise strategy and operations at Lately.ai. And it's got some amazing experience when it comes to LinkedIn, AI, and is also the host of an amazing podcast, The Death of a Salesperson. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alex, welcome to the show.
Welcome, Lee, and thank you. And I realised I probably should have ironed my top before I came on this. I'm just looking at all the creases in in the screen.
We're not hearing you there, Alex.
It's a joy to be here. Thank you. Brilliantly, thank you for having me today, and here I am looking at myself in the micro screens as we've been doing for the last 15 months or so, and I should have ironed my polo shirt, so I do apologise. My mother would be not impressed with this, so thank you for having me.
For those listening, they don't care, they don't see it, but for those watching, sponsored by T-File. Yeah, there we go. So Alex, thanks so much. Again, really appreciate your time. If you can give a brief background into what you're doing over at Lately, not what you're doing lately, but what you're doing over at Lately. Yeah, so what's going on there?
Yeah, so I've been with them for 3 months now and helping them scale into the enterprise space. Lately is the only social media marketing platform out there that has AI built into it. So we are able to create social media posts for you from your long form, any form of long form content, and then help distribute that at scale. So it's solved a long challenge, big challenge that a lot of my historical clients in my previous life had, in terms of we got all this content, haven't got time to make it work harder for me. Well, Lately, I believe, which is the reason I joined them, is that solution.
Brilliant. Yeah, and as a small business myself, when you're wearing multiple heads, sitting down writing content is one thing, but then cutting it up and making it into a suitable format for various different social platforms, it's just something, I'll be honest, I don't have time for, as much as I know it needs to be done. And I've engaged with social media marketeers in the past. Kind of starts out okay, and then it just becomes very generic and samey. Yeah. So just briefly run us through your career, if you like. So bring us up to speed. What journey have you been on? Companies you've worked for, experiences, challenges along the way.
So sales through and through, carried a bag since day dot. So for those that know, I was Mini 132 in central London for 2 years. I do apologise. Then I thought I'd get a proper job and went into recruitment. So 5 years with Michael Page International, recruiting sales professionals into the IT and tech sector. Left recruitment when LinkedIn came around because it pretty much leveled the playing field. So I've been on LinkedIn for almost as long as LinkedIn has been around. I think they had their 18th birthday a couple of weeks ago. So I think I've been on LinkedIn for 15 years. And moved into professional services, so PwC, then Berwin Leighton Paisner, which was a law firm, towards the end of my tenure there. So we're pushing 8-9 years ago, I think now. LinkedIn introduced this concept of social selling and Sales Navigator, which started me on this journey of using social and LinkedIn for outreach, if you will, to start business conversations. Then moved into commercial real estate with James Lang LaSalle, led the first ever global social selling program. According to LinkedIn, there's case studies on me on their website in the corporate real estate sector, and we did 150. We had 150 licenses in the UK across different industries and products and services within JLL. And we did 500,000 net new and a pipeline of 4.9 million through social. Brexit happened, and that was a long time ago, wasn't it? And
Like it, yeah.
I lost my job, and so I then took the opportunity to set up on my own, and I consulted for the last 4.5 years back into industry, helping organizations understand the shift in mindset and the digital behaviors required to help you. We want to use the term social selling. I hate it. I think it's lost all meaning from what it originally meant. It's just sales in the modern world, and how do you bring digital channels and digital behaviors into support everything else you're already doing into your pipeline activity. Then I became a client of Lately. To your point, Lee, exactly the same as you. Just didn't have time in terms of trying to do my own thing, create social posts or do that. Lately solved that problem. So as a client of theirs for about 6 months, and then Kate, the amazing, wonderful Kate, who's our CEO, approached me towards the end of last year saying, do you want to come on board to help us scale the enterprise? And I thought, this is too good an opportunity to turn down. So here I am. This is me. That's what I do.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. Lots of avenues we can go down with you on that. Going back to the first sort of social selling thing with LinkedIn. Was it easier back then? Because it seems really blooming complex right now for someone that doesn't understand it. I know obviously there's all these consultants out there making a business out of it, but it seems very jiggery pokery, sorcery, algorithmy,
Jiggery pokery, sorcery, algorithmy. I've got the Walt Disney Sorcerer's Apprentice cartoon now in my head, with Mickey chasing the brooms and the mops, or running around in the what have you.
It feels like that, Alex. Sometimes, you stick a post out there with what you feel is some great content. Well, particularly I'm talking about articles, because you're limited when it comes to characters on a post. So you think, no, I want to share this thing out there, and it gets like nothing compared to a post. You're like, aren't the same people that are seeing my post seeing these articles? And the simple answer I can give is no.
Which is probably true to a certain extent, but if I just take back your kind of earlier question, was it easier back then? No, because you're still fundamentally the same concepts remain true. Your personal brand, your network, and content. It was probably less noisy on LinkedIn than it has been over the last 18 months, but then we weren't in a global pandemic. And so I guess organizations were more forgiving in terms of results and proof points, because there was less in the world of, the outreaches and the sales lofts and the sales engagement automation technology probably wasn't so prevalent when Sales Navigator first, in fact, probably wasn't prevalent at all when Sales Navigator first came to market. As the complexity of the sales tech stack and the MarTech, when the MarTech stack world is just insane. The sales tech stack world is following suit. As that's become more complicated and you're layering more and more tech on top of things, then yes, it feels like, certainly for sales reps I've worked with, it's another thing that I have to do in terms of another multiple systems. In terms of the visibility and the algorithm and reach and engagement, no one really knows. I talk about it. I'm in a Facebook group of 1,000 LinkedIn experts around the world, where we all try and tinker and figure stuff out, and some people are more obsessed with it than others. LinkedIn doesn't tell us really how things truly work. Articles, for example, do perform very, very differently to a post, and that has been for a while. However, if you get, say, 200 views of an article, that means 200 people have clicked on that article, and then one's going to make an assumption, potentially read it, because they've clicked on it. 200, 2,000, 20,000 views on a post is just an eyeball. It's gone through someone's news feed. They may have engaged with it, a nanosecond, a second. They may or may not have clicked it. So it's as much understanding what the different types of engagement mean, but then more importantly, is it the right type of engagement? Is it the right types of people that are looking at the post, more so than trying to get the vanity metrics of the reach.
Yeah.
And the key thing is actually the consistency. It's the consistency of being digitally present. And what I'm certainly seeing, and a lot of people agree with this, and this is certainly what I'm seeing in terms of what LinkedIn is encouraging us to do with nudges, if you will, is conversation. So yes, it's important to write long form content because that helps position you as a subject matter expert, whether it's an article on LinkedIn or a blog post on your proprietary website. Posting on LinkedIn, and you now can have up to 3,000 characters on a post. It was 1,500, it's now 3,000 characters, so double the space. There's more stuff for people to put their brevity on there, as we call it, is also important. But actually, for me, it's the conversation.
That's what I was just going to
talking to people,
say, yeah,
which will give you the biggest reward.
Yeah. So comments. For me, comments are the best because that clearly shows the person has read what you've put, has thought about it, formed an opinion, and has proactively chosen to interact and comment. If they like something, that's probably secondary because it still means they've read it.
Yeah.
So that that's why obviously those two things are important. Like I say, I don't really care for views, as you say. I mean, because if you've had 10,000 views and 2 comments, it kind of tells you something that really only 2 people it related to, or what's the point? What was the point having 10,000 views? I mean, nobody interacted.
Completely agree. And I have been viral once on LinkedIn when I've stood in a shower fully clothed doing one of my hashtag Ask Alex videos. Initially, it was like, ooh, I'm talking hundreds of thousands of video views, which is big when it's video content. I was like, this is amazing, I'm going viral. And then I was like, no, it's not. This is a complete pain in the backside because I had loads of random people that would never, ever buy what I do. Comments, and it's great, the engagement, and you feel you have to engage back. Did it generate any leads for me? Not a single one. Not a single one. Yes, it created conversation for those in my network who dropped, oh, Alex, I love that video of you in the shower and that kind of stuff. So brands, maintaining a brand position and presence, it was helpful.
Right.
But it's just, and so trust me, going viral on LinkedIn is not all that it's cracked up to be. If it generates one more conversation for me, or it generates somebody to think a little bit differently about something, just one, then for me the piece of content has served its purpose. And this is to my what I was saying about earlier. You can't just rely purely on social. I know some organizations do and have done it well, but it's then supported by what is your outreach on LinkedIn. If you have Sales Navigator, how are you using that? If you've got Sales Navigator and Salesforce, how is it synced into Salesforce? So you're then starting to bring in that data. How's that then start to match with your email campaigns, your outbound on phone? All of this actually needs to tie together, which is now where we're starting to see this conversation around RevOps. So RevOps for me is just the new sales enablement. I'll probably get shot for saying that. But it's stitching all of this together and then wrapping that with, I guess, the operational structure, process, and execution to get this to sing in harmony. And this is, akin to what Seth Mars is talking about at Forrester. If you're not following Seth on LinkedIn, highly recommend that you do. And they're now talking about dynamic guided selling. So it's your sales data, your marketing data, any kind of data points that you can get, third-party data from the the Cognizants of the world, the Rel sides, the Zoom infos, bringing this all in and making much more informed and better decisions about who to target, when to have a conversation with them, what to talk to them about, because hopefully you've got some social data, marketing data, sign-ups, downloads, all that kind of fun stuff. If you have that third-party data, if you're then looking at kind of the direction of travel this is all going, Rob Turley at White Rabbit Intel is doing some crazy stuff in terms of what their AI can do to almost make sure you're matching to the right ideal customer profile on historical stuff. So if your audience are familiar with the CEB Gartner stat that was done to death, going, I was guilty of this, what is it, 57% of the due diligence is done on you before you even know that that's happening. Where we're now going, my belief is, and what I'm seeing and reading, is that we as sales people, organizations, business units should start to be able to get back ahead of that and get in front of that, or at least get earlier into that conversation to control, steer the narrative that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's partly good news for people like me that are in this CRM consulting world, because the CRM platform should theoretically be the central repository for all the data for all these different platforms. You know, you've got your email marketing / marketing automation journey / spam. Which it's funny, isn't it, how people rename things and hide, you know, spam has now become journeys. You're just going to keep spamming someone until they unsubscribe. Then obviously you've got your dialers, outreach, SalesLoft, VanillaSoft, FrontSpin, all that kind of stuff. Then you've got your LinkedIn Sales Navigator type approach, and you know, it goes on and on. And it's unlikely that those exterior platforms talk to each other, but they all would talk to your CRM. So bringing all of that together is, I mean, technically it's pretty simple these days to, you know, to create the handshake between the two platforms. You know, can I get this one talking to that? You know, they've made that element very simple, but it's the alignment of the data points, you know, and the processes around all of that. So it's all right just sticking a dialer outreach out there, but what does that data look like when it gets into your CRM? Where are you going to be doing your reporting on? You know, what are your pick list values? Have you got your field mappings all set up correctly? You know, if you're doing the email marketing, you know, well, are you showing that on the contact record so you can see all the interactions there as well? Maybe you've got a fresh desk support system and QuickBooks, and you know, you can see whether they've got open tickets with you, because I mean, it's cardinal sin picking up the phone to somebody to say, hey, how's it all going? I'm calling about the renewal, and there's like 5 support tickets open. I mean, yeah, so you know, it's really great for us, but it's a huge challenge, because you've got all these multiple data, or these platforms pushing data in based on activity. And then you've got the data sources like your Zoom info, etc. Other data providers are available, pushing, enriching data in the platform as well. And I have issue or umbrance with those data sources, because where are they getting this information from? Realistically, the only platform out there that you or I would keep the most up to date, in fact, really, there are no other platforms I keep anything up to date, really, is LinkedIn. So I've got my personal private stuff on Facebook, which might be, I might have my phone number on there and an email address possibly, but on LinkedIn, that's me, the business, and that's where the information is. So really all these scrapers, web scrapers, are just scouring the internet and probably pulling most of it from LinkedIn.
And you've got LinkedIn, you've got email signatures, you've got just public facing websites, and also there's that interesting, I think it's still going, the court case between HiQ and LinkedIn, where a judge actually ruled in HiQ's favor. I think it was with their recruitment platform, I think, and they were scraping public facing LinkedIn data, and the ruling in New York State was that's okay because it's public facing. It's a public facing website. So it's that debate is will rage on. For me, it's a bit like the whole cookie debate at the moment, and the privacy settings in iOS 14. So in terms of not being tracked and tracked, data is data, right? It's more how you use it, which then is, let's take a step back in terms of outcomes, and outcomes we're trying to achieve it. The challenge in the world of sales is that everybody's got something to sell, and different conversation this, but then how salespeople are rewarded then drives certain behaviors and processes. How your KPIs in terms of, let's just send more emails, let's do more outreach through, whatever the tool is, just to do more and more and more, and hope that that will fix the problem, which fundamentally it isn't. Then you throw in the mix a global pandemic, which has shifted and the way people want to buy. And then, Christ, am I bored of seeing organizations talk about now being, putting the customer first and being client-centric. I was talking about that bloody 20 years ago in the world of recruitment. It's just it just does my nuts.
Day one, week one stuff.
Put yourself in the customer's shoes. It's like, geez Louise. But what is obviously interesting is that as buyers, we are more in control. We have access to more information, etc., etc. But we are also human beings. We are also lazy in our own right. And typically, I will ask, Lee, could you recommend a data source to me? Lee, can you recommend a restaurant to me? It's that, and Lee, I trust you. So if you've done the due diligence and go, these are the 3 I talk to. Those are the 3 I'm going to go and talk to. So what's now interesting is that buyers have now realised, well, I don't need to meet a sales rep necessarily in person. Field sales is dead, as far as I'm concerned. Field sales will not go back to what it was, because clients have gone, well, you don't need to come and visit me. We can just do it this way, and the brand shall remain nameless. But I had a call with them, and they said, we're really struggling in the UK business, big global brand within kind of the security sector, and they said the challenge is our sales force are of a certain age and of a certain demographic, and they're used to walking around business parks. They're used to, pressing the flesh old school. So not only is it a struggle to get them to understand digital in terms of just generally, they cannot sell in this environment. They don't know how to sell over video. They don't know how to build a relationship with a human being in a virtual world. And interestingly, what one of the gentlemen I was talking to was trying to do, they were trying to fit their old sales processes into this new world order. And I was like, well, that's but we've always done it this way syndrome. That process is dead. So you've actually got to reinvent your sales process to fit the new way that your buyers are buying. And McKinsey research, which came out of the December of last year, so so 6 months old now, they surveyed 3,000, I know this data off the back of my head, 3,626 buyers of products and services in the B2B space. And 15% of those respondents said they'd be happy to spend over $1 million on a product or service in an entirely virtual space, virtual world. So it's not saying we don't need to meet people. I don't need to physically meet a human being. I'm happy to engage and sign off at that level of contract value in this environment or in a self-serve environment. So this is absolutely fundamentally shifting how we as sellers need to go to where the buyer is going and understand how they now want to buy, which is when all this amazing, all of the technology platforms you mentioned are amazing, but they're all fighting for the eyeballs to be on them, rather than, I think it's CRM's having a renaissance, is that the CRM should be the window that you start and everything else builds in there. Or I'm now starting to see some of the narrative is customer data platforms. So starting to bring in what happens in the world of e-commerce. You have all of that tech underneath, and then you have a single view on top of everything that the CEO can log in and see what they want to see, the FD can log in and see what they want to see, sales can then, and it's all bringing all of this data and information up into one place. And to your point, Lee, technically, totally doable. Operationally and processly, if that's a thing I don't know, forgive me. That's a whole different question. That's far more in your domain of expertise than mine.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and differences in terminologies and processes that can definitely, even between sales and marketing, the amount I see technology clashing and teams clashing because they aren't aligned. It is amazing. Yeah, gosh. Going to your point about the sort of cookie thing, I won't name the company, but they alluded to the fact that if you install something on your email client, you will get 10 reveals free per day. But what they're going to be doing is scraping email auto signatures from people that you're interacting with.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute here. So if I send you an email for the first time and it's not in your database, my data could end up in your database without me knowing. It's like, well, technically, yes, but you can unsubscribe. I'm like, come on.
That technology is already out there. I mean,
Yeah.
IntraHive was a big player in this space, and they use it to enrich CRM systems. And it's a very good piece of kit. What you have to understand, so obviously each country is different in terms of legislation. So the United Kingdom and the EU, from a GDPR perspective, and this is even, if you think the process is exactly the same with Sales Navigator syncing into any CRM system. You read the LinkedIn terms of business, they say we can create that path, you can bring LinkedIn data from Sales Navigator into your CRM. The minute that data goes into your CRM, it is no longer our responsibility as LinkedIn, it is your responsibility to process that person's data pursuant to the legislation in your geography from a GDPR perspective. So I don't necessarily take umbrage with that, because if it's enriching CRM data and making it just more up to date and better, it's then the communication to the person that you're doing that to, that needs to be, okay, we have your details in our CRM system marketing database. Is that okay, or whatever the rules are? So it's an interesting debate, but it comes full circle back to the whole data piece, is that it's already out there anyway. I mean, let's be honest, that Pandora's box is already gone. It's more around how that person, brand, organization uses that to interact with me as a person in a way that, okay, I know the debate of personalization and relevance at scale B2B, personalization at scale and B2C, because only Amazon, Spotify, Facebook, and Apple can do this sort of thing, because they have that volume of data, which we've all freely given them anyway. So if it's then leveraged in a way that makes it relevant to me, it doesn't necessarily feel automated, although I probably know it is automated. But then, to pick up your term, the handshake between, systems, or your example, I think is a good one. Don't try and upsell someone when they've got a bunch of tickets open. Where this tends to then fall down is, let's say that you've actually had a pretty good interaction with a brand organization digitally, either through email or through social, maybe through some paid, some nice interaction. Okay, this feels pretty good. I'm now ready to have a conversation with you. Then the sales rep, and then different conversation between SDRs, AEs, conversation going back to full cycle sales reps, I think we should, doesn't mirror that journey, if you want, that's happened before that point. And they go, hang on a second, it's been really good until this point, and now this is crap. You've broken and destroyed everything that you've done at that front end. And this is then where layer some AI on top of that, or AI, for those that are listening, I'm doing the inverted commas, then takes into a different kind of pace. So I'm not too bothered about the data piece. It's more around how is that data being used.
Well, listen, if you're going to scrape it and collect it, fricking use it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Don't call me when you've got all that information and make out that you know nothing about me.
Yeah.
But also, don't just call me up and go, "Hi, Lee."
Yeah. I completely agree. And again, it's horses for courses. This is the other problem with kind of social and everything. I know we were talking about this before we came on air in our virtual green room. There isn't one size fits all in sales either. And there are some markets where social selling is just not appropriate. I was remember chatting to, she was on my podcast actually, a lovely lady called Devon Banks, and the company she works for sells software for breakdown trucks and tow trucks and some kind of mapping clever stuff. She goes, they're not on LinkedIn, they're not on Twitter, because some of them are just solo individual or small garage with breakdown trucks. So the only way I can get to them is calling. There's no point me trying to do social engagement on LinkedIn because they're not there. Flip side, other end of the scale, if you're talking to the Lees of the world or the me of the world or the larger players that are on social, there is no excuse to not go, I know a little bit about what you do, latest share price, latest thing your CEO's, just something to show that you give a modicum of a shit in terms of that as a person and a brand.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I'm helping another one of my clients do an outreach campaign, and I mean, literally, I did a very, very basic LinkedIn Sales Navigator search with the right geography, the job titles that were relevant, and the industries that they were currently successful in. And I got like 1,000 contacts in there that fitted. And I thought, okay, well, let's just not spam them. Let's, how far can I take it? And I thought, well, what's a realistic time frame to give an SDR or an AE, whatever, to do some sort of background check to see if they are a real fit and find that way in? And really, for me, the borderline is 10 minutes. It's finding that balance between volume and doing your homework and everything. But within 10 minutes, on multiple contacts, I found great keywords that they were aligned to the client. I found that it was a global company with offices in multiple countries, which means could potentially be a nice bigger global deal. The websites also had a dedicated page which spoke about the kind of things that this company were doing. They'd just been acquired, and there was a new VP of sales or something. I'm like, this is absolutely primed for what this company does, but you need to now use that information and think about, okay, well, acquiring companies, okay, two different companies, two sets of values, two different working practices, two cultures, all this kind of thing. It's going to be a big old mess trying to bring it together. You help with that. New senior person coming in, they're going to want to put their stamp on things. So things are all set for change and disruption, and therefore they can lead to people getting unsettled and wanting to leave and all the rest of it. So it was definitely, and I found multiple companies that had got some form of that kind of information, or the chairman's statement sort of talked about what his commitments were for the next 12 months and all this kind of stuff. And I got all these things for like 10, 20 different companies, all within 10 minutes each. And so, why aren't people doing that? I'm sure they are, but that for me that's about as close to selling as you can get these days, considering what you were talking about earlier, the fact that people, when they want to buy something, ask for referrals from their close to trusted advisors. They get someone in their team who they know is particularly hot on a particular tech and go, okay, you go research it, come back to me with all the key findings. So most of the research has been done, and they've narrowed it down to probably 2 or 3 vendors, and then they go talking to those vendors, and then inevitably what happens is the SDR person then starts to pitch this person, and I'm like, no, you've completely misread the signals here, because you don't need to pitch. They already know what you do. They already understand it. They've probably had watch the videos. They've seen it already. You don't need to pitch. So yeah, complete misalignment there.
It then comes back to the whole tension between I know that this is starting to come out as well in conversations online, that maybe the sales model in terms of reward, month on month, quarter on quarter, in terms of the numbers, needs to change, because that never drives value for the customer, the client, the prospect. At the end of the day, most people know, well, when's your month end or quarter end? Your quarter end, right? I'm going to sit tight until like 2 days before, and I could probably beat you up on price, because that's just the nature of the nature of the beast. But then if you're a publicly owned company, you got to report to shareholders. So shareholders want shareholder value in terms of, so you've got to report on that side of things. So it's not it's not easy when you've got the balance of the volume play versus the more personalized play. And there isn't an answer, because if I had it, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. I'd be sunning myself on a yacht somewhere drinking a pina colada or something like that. But I suppose it comes full circle back to sales is bloody hard work.
Yes,
it was hard 20 years ago when none of this existed. It's probably even harder now, because there's so much other crap going on that we have to contend with, let alone what's happening in a kind of a geopolitical sense around the world. And yeah, I guess again it comes back to different industries, different horses, horses for courses. But this whole thing, I think, of bringing this know me, show me you know me. That's what Sam says. Samantha McKenna, she's based in the States. Follow #SamSales on LinkedIn. She's brilliant, an ex-LinkedIner. And it's just a single show me you care, just show me you know me. To your point, Lee, you can do it really quickly on LinkedIn. But you've got management team going, I don't want my reps wasting their time doing research on LinkedIn when they should be picking up the phone and making dials, as it were.
But this goes back to the point of ensuring that you understand which bits of tech are to be used to do which approach and who does what.
Exactly.
Like, the SDRs invariably get given a list that's pre-qualified, so a certain set of list of people that meet a certain criteria for something where it's like bang, 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 call. Can I get a meeting? Can I get a meeting with my AE? Blah, 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 and away you go. Versus an AE who are supposed to be more experienced, typically slightly older, work for a few different companies, understand the sales process, and should be doing those background checks, and should be taking that time. Yet invariably what I see is AEs sitting there waiting, going, well, I'm not doing outbounding. Either I'm too busy, which is horse crap, or I'm waiting for marketing to send me some more leads. They're all terrible that I get from marketing. There's not enough of them, blah, blah, blah. SDRs aren't giving me enough qualified leads, blah, blah. I'm not. Effectively what you're saying is you're a salesperson who doesn't want to sell. You want to sit there and order take, and only have conversations with people that are urgently burning for you to call them and give you their money. Well, that almost doesn't exist. I can't say never, but almost doesn't exist, and that's certainly not selling. So why should you get paid all the money you are for sitting there taking an order?
Yeah, and that's the whole. I mean, I've never really quite understood the SDR AE narrative. Like recruitment days, you had to find the jobs, find the candidates, go and do the pitch to the client, do everything end to end, deliver and execute. And back in the day when I was recruiting sales roles, God, I sound like my late father. Is that there were 3: net new, account management, and channel. That was it. That was what you wanted to. Net new was the person that enjoyed going out, the hunting, finding the business, but still controlled the whole sales cycle. Account management were like, I'd far rather just farm some accounts, but still going to find net new business out of those accounts. And then the channel salespeople, forgive me for any former channel salespeople that are listening to this, was the super lazy routine, because you get somebody else to do all the selling for you, and that was just schmoozing the salespeople at said channel partners to make sure that your product is always top of mind against the multitude of other kind of products they had in their.
In my defense, I did reseller, distributor, vendor, so I served my time.
You understand that side of the coin. This is part of the tech. This is part, the overcomplication of the overall sales tech stack. This is, dare I say it, how can I put this diplomatically? Some fantastic marketing for some brilliant brands out there in terms of what they do and what they can achieve. And is this the new panacea to getting more sales meetings and getting more what have you? And evidently it isn't, because I did a podcast with John Seelig, I showed early this week actually, and he's a comedian turned sales trainer, former Oracle salesperson, and he did a post the other day on LinkedIn going, I think it's fine. I find it something, I paraphrase it, something effect. I find it ironic that you got sales tech companies selling tech, which removes this, is meant to remove the seller from the sales process. Next statement, yet all these sales companies are complaining their sales teams haven't got enough conversations with people to sell to for the technology that they're trying to remove the salesperson from, or something to that effect. So I think you kind of got a fair point there.
Yeah, I think I don't think we are, I can't say anywhere near, but we're certainly not close to what I think people expect out of AI when it comes to providing these amazing, wonderful lists of people that are ready to buy your stuff. There is no replacement for picking up the phone and having a conversation with somebody.
Yep.
That is the best form of intelligence and research and data providers or data scraping, if you like, that you can get. So it amazes me with how SDRs, AEs, whatever, that are making those calls fail to validate the data that they've got on the system. While you're having that call, just doing a quick sanity check, before I go, so we don't get anything wrong in the future. Is this still where you're located? Is this still your email address?
Yeah.
Obviously, the phone number was right. I'm chatting to you. Everything okay with that? Yeah. Okay. Just keep sending you marketing material, newsletter. Yep. Great. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. It takes but a minute to do that, when in fact they're the ones who moan the data's crap in the database. When it comes around again, it hasn't got that information on there. But I want to switch it to your podcast. As we change tack, the death of a salesperson. So we've touched across some of it, but what drove you to start that? There was obviously something burning away inside you that was like, this is really bugging the crap out of me. I need to share this with people.
I wish there was some, romantic story I could tell, or a moment of epiphany as I was walking down leafy suburbia in SW19 about, I must have my voice heard. People demand me, people must hear what I've got to say. It was more just I wanted to learn, understand how it worked, because podcasting, I started 3 years ago, I think it's 3 years ago, maybe a bit longer. And I just wanted to understand it because it was starting to really take off as a new medium to get your voice and your opinion, your thoughts and your ideas across. And if I was going to be advising organizations on kind of go-to-market digital strategies, I kind of need to eat my own dog food in terms of what that's like and how it feels. So it just started out going, right, I'm going to do it. How did I start? I just started to use blog posts I'd already written as the theme for the podcast. Whilst I didn't read them verbatim, it was just me just waffling on for the best part of half an hour around a topic. It starts to get some traction. So I then started to use it as a BD tool. So I then started to use it as a way to invite people onto my podcast that either were influencers, and I use the word loosely, but in their space. So CMO from a law firm, for example. And I always would try and go for people that aren't the usual people that are always out there, a little bit different, because if someone's been on a podcast for the first time, that's exciting, that's good for them, they feel grateful for that. And then it just kind of went from there, really. And I just covered all topics that challenged my own thinking, because I freely admit I was in the social selling bubble for a while initially. Cold calling is evil and email marketing is evil, and you should only do social. And I've learned that's not the case at all. Cold calling works very well across some industries, and there's research from reputable research companies which show this with big data sets, which enabled me to just perform myself more, which I have a broader, better, more educated conversation with clients from an advisory perspective. Look, I'm not an expert in this, but if you want to go on the street, go and speak to Justin Michael, go and speak to Patrick Joyce, go and speak to Lee Nightingale. I'm sure they'll be happy to give you your insights. Now it's turning into a bit of a monster because I've just hit the 4,000 download marks. That's like, massaging the ego a bit. So now I want to get to 5,000. I want to get to see if I can get to 10,000 in the, by this time next year. So it was just actually understand the mechanics of it. And now I just really enjoy it because I just like talking to people. I just like sharing ideas and just shooting the breeze, really, much like we're doing here, Lee.
Fantastic, yeah. And I'm an introvert, and And so putting myself out there on something like this isn't something that I was comfortable with to start with. Um, but for me, I tried to just treat it as a process, and let me learn about the tech to do it. Let's see if I can get comfortable with the tech piece first. How easy is it? What's out there?
Yeah.
And that, I have to say, is very, very easy. Buzzsprout, for example, I really can't speak highly enough of them. It's been a phenomenal platform for very, very low investment
Yeah.
on a monthly basis for hosting it, for stripping out the audio from the video and distributing it out to all the major podcast players has been amazing. This go to webinar that we used to do the actual video audio recording, very straightforward, just seems to work okay. So it was a great process. I thought, well, yeah, I can make it all work. And I'm talking about stuff that generally I know about. I'm talking about business and operations and systems and process and tech and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. But for me, it feels like I probably need to change slightly. I've done what 30 of these now, which is not a lot in comparison to yourself. But for me, I'm contemplating going more of a roundtable panel discussion with 2 or 3 different people, hopefully controversially talking with one another with different opinions, getting each other fired up and really sort of I think that's always difficult, getting someone on that has a different opinion to yourself and isn't
Yeah.
afraid to share it. You get a lot of people come on these shows that are all very polite and they're grateful for for the invite coming on the show and getting awareness about themselves and their brand and their company and all the rest of it. But I actually would prefer for someone to come on and say, Lee, actually, no, I disagree with what you're saying there. I don't think that's right, and challenge my way of thinking, because that's how part of how I learn. Because I just may never have thought about that different opinion, that different way of thinking.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to turn around and say, do you know what? You're absolutely right. I'm wrong. I've learned something today, and I'm happy to share that. There we
And
go.
that's like anything in life. That's to go back to the conversation around LinkedIn. It's okay to disagree with people on social media, not in a trolling,
Yeah.
cancel culture type sort of approach. But I've had some pretty robust debates with people on LinkedIn in exactly the same way as I do in this, exactly the same way if we were in a face-to-face meeting. And it's generated conversations, generated connections. And some people have gone, I disagree with him, I agree with you, that's why I'm connecting with you, and so on and so forth.
Amazing.
It's okay to go, okay, I challenge that statement, and here's why, and here's why I think this. Let that person come back. And I think the roundtable idea is brilliant. If you've got LinkedIn Live, you can turn that into a live, do a live broadcast, and then you turn that into a podcast as a follow-up.
Yeah.
That's the lives work well when you have kind of more than 2 people just doing this, because it just creates more of a dynamic in terms of the audience. But then you just do the same process that you've done. You've got the video, whack that up on YouTube, you've got the audio, strip that and put it into a podcast.
Fantastic. Finally, two things. One, how have you coped during lockdown? What sort of things did you do? Did you do anything new that you weren't doing beforehand? And second part is books, films, TV shows, documentaries, anything that you feel that you want to share with others that inspired you in your career, that that really sort of give you great tidbits. So let's start with the lockdown bit first. How have you coped?
The first time around, I had a few wobbles. It was pretty tough, especially as an independent consultant, when your pipeline evaporates and you look at your the cash flow in your business bank account, and you're like, that's finite
Yeah.
in terms of months on the clock, and then you've got bills to pay and this and this and that. I guess the uncertainty of it, and it got lonely again, because even though I'm at home, you don't have a support structure, you don't have people to talk to your work colleagues, etc., to what have you. I started to get way more into, I was doing a lot of exercise anyway, but concentrating more on that, making sure I was going for at least 3 runs a week, just in the morning, just to clear my head. Is when I do most of my my thinking. I'm big into my barbecue, so did more into that, proper low, slow Texas style cooking.
Nice.
So yeah.
And you're a big tennis fan, I understand.
I enjoy watching it. I'm not necessarily that good a player of it. We're very fortunate that my daughter has been picked as part of the LTA's Junior Tennis Association
Nice.
program, so she gets free coaching every Sunday at Wimbledon's new training facility, which is pretty special and pretty spectacular considering she's only 6. So nurture that the best I can, and then maybe she's our meal ticket out of here. But, so yeah, no, it's we're very, very fortunate on
Pushy parent now. And finally, then books, shows, people to engage with. Actually, you've mentioned many names during the show. Perhaps either worth a recap on some of those that it's worth connecting with, or websites or people.
So salesborgs.ai, which is run by Justin Michael. Follow him. Rob Turley at White Rabbit Intel. I think they're doing some really interesting stuff in terms of the next generation of kind of data sources. Samantha McKenna over in the States, she's brilliant. #SamSales is her piece. She's really good. Devon Banks, as I had mentioned her, she's brilliant. She's got a great view on life. Books that I've read and enjoyed. Getting Naked by Patrick. I'm gonna have to Google. I'm gonna have to now multitask now. Google this. I want to say Ciccone or Ciccone. I'll send you the link, Lee, so you can put the thing into it's a business fable, and my mouse is now dying. Really interesting book in terms of a large consulting firm acquiring a small consulting firm. They couldn't understand why the small consulting firm was way more profitable than this massive consulting firm, and without giving too much away, it was like, we don't pitch, we just start consulting from day one. And the other book that I really liked, if you're kind of a bit of a geek, is Predictive Analytics, which is by, I'm just going to put this now, and it's predict who's going to, what is this, click, buy, die, or something or other. Again, he wrote back a while ago, but again, a great read, which I'm not a very good job of doing it, because he's got me on the whole. Here we go. Eric Siegel is the author. Just put predictive analytics into that, and it's, what's the title? It's the power to predict who will click, buy something, and come on, Amazon. The power to predict who will click, buy, lie, or die. But really quite fascinating read in terms of the data science that goes behind some of the very sophisticated marketing, politics, polling, and so on. So Getting Naked by Patrick Ciccone and Predictive Analytics by Eric Siegel are two good books I would recommend.
Fantastic. Alex, thank you. Really appreciate your time. Some wonderful insights there. I've certainly learned a lot. I hope hopefully the viewers and listeners have as well. Thanks for the recommendations. All those different people and sites worth engaging with. Definitely going to be keeping an eye on what you're doing. Recommend others do that. Obviously follow Alexander Lowe on LinkedIn. And the Death of a Salesman podcast is going to be on my list to have a listen to. So appreciate your time. Thanks very much, Alex. Take it easy. Thanks everyone for tuning into another episode of Business Source.
My pleasure, Lee. Thank you.